Thanks for having me, and thanks for the nice introduction. I structured my presentation in 3 parts. First of all, I have to start with the obligatory start about what is ProStep, who is ProStep, and then I want to dive a bit into what is PLM together with you, and then at the end of the day I want to wrap up a bit into how we can have this complex picture into some more clarity for you and how we can get started with PLM. So first of all, we start with ProStep. ProStep is a company which has been founded in 1993, so a bit more than 30 years plus of experience, and I believe that this picture is actually an original picture of from the founding year. For those of you who have been in touch with 3D geometry before, you may have heard about the STEP protocol, which is kind of a standard file format for exchanging 3D geometry. And actually the STEP protocol is the reason for our company name. So there was some initiative in especially the automotive industry developing or having the need for a standard. We mentioned the need for standards just a couple of seconds ago or minutes ago. And out of this need for the standard, the STEP protocol was created, and from the group who created this STEP protocol, which is actually the ProStep Association, or was the ProStep Association back then, now they're called the ProStep EVIP Association, was founded the ProStep Produktdatentechnologie GmbH, very nice German word. And from our founders, and most of them are still our owners, you can see some of the powerhouses of German economy, I believe, like some of the automotive supply or companies and suppliers like BMW, Bosch, Volkswagen, Daimler, you name them. And since then, we learn from all our companies, our customers, the challenges around PLM and try to help them paving a way through the challenge of PLM integrations and also PLM, applying PLM in the world. So today we are having about 30 plus years of experience, and the very important part is we are completely software vendor independent, and that makes us having a very unique perspective on the topic of PLM. We talked to, I think, almost, or at least most of the PLM software vendors, as we have good connections to, for example, Siemens was mentioned earlier, PTC, ARAS and others, and really trying to be on the forefront for and together with our customers, driving the software vendors into what's really needed for having in PLM solutions. We have several offices in Germany, I believe something like 10 or so. We do have a location in Poland and a location in the USA, so quite a growing company. And I believe we are roughly about 270 plus PLM experts, plus some other people working in the organization. And aside the part where I'm from, which is consulting around the topic of PLM, we do also create custom products in the same area of PLM, mainly about integration where it's needed. So then obviously I need to list some of our customers, so you can see some nice logos here and some more nice logos on the other side. So I think what you can see and what you have been seeing is that we are really having customers from many different industries. My home industry, so to say, is the shipbuilding and marine technology industry. That's where I have most of my experience is from. But you can see there's many industries in that area we're working with, and I'm very curious whether we might be working with some more cable manufacturing in the future as well. All right, so let's dive into PLM a bit. And one question first from my side. Who of you knows what PLM stands for? Please raise the hands. That's some, that's good. Excellent. Who of you have been implementing a PLM software before? Not that many, but still some. Excellent. So I'm trying to, so PLM in a way sometimes is also a bit of a buzzword, and I try to attempt a demystification of what PLM is and what it stands for. And what you will see, I try to start very simple, and it will become very complex quickly. And afterwards I will go back and try to get the topic separated so that we can find the easy parts. And first, it's nice to start with some kind of a definition. So I'm always having the challenge when I talk to my parents or friends of my parents, and they have no clue about what product lifecycle management is, and I need to explain it to them in one sentence, and I think it's not very easy. So first of all, PLM stands for Product Lifecycle Management, so well, that sounds good. And really what it is, and for me this is very important, it's not just the name of a tool. PLM really is an approach and a strategic thinking about how you think about your product's data and processes from the idea to end of life. And why do you do this? Because you want to, improve collaboration, and you want to reduce failures and costs. And at the end of the day, PLM is a lot about having the right data at the right time for the right person. And by the way, this sentence is exam relevant, so at the end of the day there will be a small exam, and I want you to quote this sentence perfectly fine. So if you think about it, having the same data or the right data for the correct person at the right time in the context of manufacturing means also that we are talking about a lot of different disciplines, right? We do have something like an engineering discipline. They are creating data. We do have something like a manufacturing discipline. They mostly consume data but also create data. And at the end, we also have perspectives on operation of the product. And some of this might even be relevant for the product passport, which we just learned some moments ago. And even then, after the product is going to an end of life, maybe even you get information which is needed for companies which are not out of the producing company anymore. And within this, you have several other perspectives as well, like systems engineering. You may have Internet of Things, and obviously we talked about artificial intelligence today, which might be also a perspective in here. So let's have a look on how this actually might look alike, and what it actually means. So it's a lot about connecting dots. So for a second, I want you to envision or imagine a product you want to produce. Can be, I don't know, maybe some cable, might be an obvious example for here, or maybe just, it could be something like a new nice boat or a car or whatever. It's really the same for everything. And you might start with some kind of idea, right? You might start with an idea, and this idea might be very concrete. You have some specific requirements you will put on a sheet of paper maybe. Maybe a Word document, maybe some fancy requirement management tool, right? Saying something like, I want to go from A to B, right? I want to do this and that, and so on. And with these requirements, you get to, at the end of the part, to some kind of product you want to ship, you want to sell, you want to use. And in between, the least thing you might have to do is, maybe draw some sketches, do some instructions to build whatever you want to ship at the end of the day. And this is very common for most of the products, right? Or almost all products, I believe. And now the challenge is, within this process, you might face some changes. You might not do this product on your own. You work with different other disciplines as well. So really what you need to do is you need to think about the information flowing from the different disciplines, from the different dots to each other, and think about how you can make this information flow the best way, the most efficient way, the most effective way. And one picture you might use for that is the so-called digital thread. Some say this is another buzzword. Some find it a bit like, philosophy, but really think about, try to avoid any data silos, for example. Try to interface reasonably, ensure that you have information connected from the different disciplines rather than, take something out and put it in again. So what you want to avoid here is any unnecessary export-import, because that always can be a source for problems, and you certainly don't want to rework information. And of course you want to do all this very efficiently with avoiding any failures. So this is quite simple picture, I hope. And now we see the very same thing in a bit more realistic scope, and you see easily it gets more complex. Because if you look, for example, to how this might be managed in the real world, and I believe for many of you, you might already be doing this. You might see your requirements managed in some kind of a structure, for example, and you have a specific requirement which you connect to a specific part in your design workflow. Your design workflow certainly also is some kind of structure. Typically, people, or and most organizations tend to organize products in a structural way. And at the end of the day, you also have some production and sales and delivery, etc. And you see along this complete chain of the different processes, you find different structures, for example, and you try to connect in the dots using something like a digital thread. And this is just one part or one picture or one, what we would say, capability about what PLM is. So let's try to decode this bit more complex picture into what PLM is, and let's try to make it into something we can deal with, we can handle. So I mentioned we have in PLM different, perspectives we need to cover, different parties, different disciplines, and that means we need to deal with the organizational level of your organization, or of the organization, where we need to think about PLM. We do need to think about integration as well. We want to integrate information from A to B, for example. And at the end of the day, we also want to pick the right tools to support our process, because we want to do it, as most convenient as possible. And over the years, ProStep came up with the methodology, difficult word for me, methodology of PLM capabilities. So rather than thinking about one big thing, which you might call a PLM tool, we try to find the different particular capabilities, like small building blocks, which are really important. And the nice thing about it is all these capabilities, they will be never the same in the same combination or the same kind of weight for the companies. There will always be small changes in here and there. So we put all these management capabilities into what we call this capability map, just to have a visual representation of it. But really behind it, there's a lot of expertise about the different things. And this is also something changing. So you have been talking about AI this morning several times. So as you can see, this is, for example, some of the technologies you might face in the service capabilities down there. We do find the typical management capabilities separated a bit into the core of what you see in PDM, and very often if you talk about PDM or PLM, then very often it comes from the perspective of CAD data. Something like 3D geometry generated from SolidWorks, Solid Edge, NX, CATIA, you name them, managed into a data management tool. Around this, we find certain other capabilities, like, for example, material and sustainability management, a topic we also get in touch with quite often right now, or get contact with when we talk about product passport with our some of our customers, which is actually a topic I can assure you, which is going around the industry. And of course, on the top side, we do have what we like to call the generation capabilities, or also we like to call it, like, typically the authoring layer. And all these, or not all these, but a selection of these capabilities and parts will be important at your organization as well. So what we do is we try to, when we go to customers, and we try to help finding the right tools for them, the right tool environment to develop the right strategy on how to deal with the product lifecycle at their particular organization. We go in and we identify what are those capabilities which are really important, which drive the biggest impact, the highest value, and where you can leverage the best effectivity. And the result of this could be something like a heat map. And I will show you a typical heat map, which is kind of an industry heat map for classic ETO companies. And in this case, actually, it's a heat map we created here throughout a marine conference. So it was a conference for shipbuilding and marine organizations who are mainly creating large one-time objects like ships, like vessels, like floating structures, for example. So throughout the conference, we made some kind of little activity, and we From this we derive this picture saying, okay, which are the capabilities and the topics driving you as companies the most? And what you see here is all the red boxes, for example, had like at least 15, I think there was like 20 to 25 organizations in that room. So that's, for shipbuilding, this is quite huge. Okay, it's a small industry. And these red boxes, I think they had like more than 10 or maybe 15 people saying this is important at our company. The yellow ones, more than 5, I believe, and the other ones may have 1 or 2, but we've not been that important. And the interesting thing, or the thing to illustrate here, is that you can see like many of these organizations will probably deal with product structure management, which, by the way, was the picture I showed you earlier, was dealing with product structures. Many will think about master data management in the PDM context. And I'm sure that there will be some of these boxes which are relevant for you as well. So just keep in mind these small symbols here of the capabilities, and then we jump to the next picture. And the very core important message is PLM is not just, it's not just a software you install. I mentioned that earlier. It's not like putting a CD into a computer and then you have PLM, you just press start and you're good to go. It's really about finding the different layers and understanding which capability you have and where you position it. Typically, a vendor of a PDM tool or PLM tool will probably say something like, okay, we do have this great capabilities here and we just throw in this big tool set and you do everything within our tool set. And I've been in this position myself, so I can understand that, of course. But really, it's much better for you to understand where your capabilities are. And if you think about capabilities, you can also start to distribute them, where they're placed most reasonably in your environment. And our approach here is that we do have this kind of typical starting point for PLM architecture, where we see different layers. I mentioned the authoring layer. This is where you typically find capabilities of creating data, MCAD, for example, mechanical CAD, electrical CAD, or if you go back to your requirements, maybe just Word as an application to write on requirement. Could be such a thing. Very often you do see in this complete picture of a PLM strategy something we call the team database or team data management layer. So if you, for example, have specific CAD solutions, they sometimes come with their own database, or you have a specific, very fancy requirement management tool which has its own database and its own kind of lifecycle perspective in here. And you might decide that you want to use that particular one, and then you can, put this into a complete picture. You typically also would place something like a PDM layer. Many of the vendors will claim that this is a PLM layer. So this is basically the engineering backbone where you store most of your engineering data and try to merge the processes. And of course, at the end of the day, you certainly have something like an enterprise layer connecting to ERP tools, for example, and maybe even some more analytical tools afterwards. So this is like a, how a map could look like and how we would typically then see and distribute the important parts from the heat map in your organization as some kind of enterprise architecture approach. So how do we get from complexity, so from the more complex pictures, and I really try to show you just the simple examples we have. The challenge is we all love complexity, and in this, in this topic where you have so many opportunities, it's easy to get very complex very quick. And then it's a challenge to, get all this back into a clear picture. And for this, it's very important for us. I mean, this is, obviously from my colleagues in marketing. And I truly believe one very important point on this slide is the independence from us. One of the reasons why we can really act as a trusted advisor in this context is we do not have any interest in you using one or the other tool, right? So we don't benefit whether you decide for one or the other solution. We just benefit in you getting the right process out of the PLM, out of your PLM challenges. We do have several consulting parts we do in here, and one very obviously one is to help you selecting the right PLM or PDM tools. We do this as part of these, what we call strategic PLM consulting. Architectural design or enterprise architecture very often is a very credential part of it. And then we really try to get together the different layers of your organization, getting the people with us or getting the people with the project, which is very important. And at the end of the day, getting PLM into the organizations and helping you to get into it apart. So let's wrap this up with some key takeaways. So for me, it's really important, and these are the actual exam questions today. So that I was just joking about the sentence. I really hope that one takeaway for you is that you see that lifecycle management or product lifecycle management is not just installing a tool. It's not just buying a tool and you're done. Another important part in this thinking about PLM is think about the connection of threads, right? About this initial picture which I was drawing. Try to think about how can you connect your particular data entities into a good connected picture so that you can reduce failure and increase quality. And then if you decide to go or to review your PLM landscape, really put the capabilities first, because this will help you finding the right tool. This will help you understanding what you really need. And it's a lot easier if you focus on the capabilities first and you know what you want to do, and afterwards find the right tool for it. Yeah, I'm happy to take any questions and of course any discussions now and later.